Folks, we are here on Full Moon Fridays here on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel. We are tired of puppets. We're done with the puppets for the next, 2-3 months, however long it is. We are talking the Trancers franchise, and we're going to talk the very first episode, first installment of the Trancers franchise tonight. Joining me to discuss the hijinks of Jack Death here in America is Steve.
Hello. We are still here.
And over there in Sweden is Borb.
Hello.
Okay. Trancers. Now, this is a franchise. I have the box set. I had seen at least 3 of these. I've seen the first 3. I don't think I had watched the subsequent sequels to this. So I'm actually excited when we get deep into this to see where the story of the Trancer stuff goes. My recollection of Trancers when I saw it as a kid was I didn't really understand it. Like it wasn't something as simple as like, oh yeah, puppets running around killing people or something. It just seemed weird, and I didn't really have any sort of fond recollections or memories of Trancers itself. I don't really remember any of the Full Moon video zones talking about Trancers. I know they exist, but I don't remember any of that. Steve, do you have specific memories of Trancers as a kid, or was this kind of off your radar most of your life?
No, I've seen this before, but I remembered very little of it. What I remembered was Dollman was in it, Helen Hunt is in it, and time travel was somehow involved, and that was it. And as I was watching this movie, I came to the realization that a lot of scenes that I had in my head that I thought took place in this movie are actually just from Dollman, because Tim Thomerson is also in it, also wearing a trench coat, also shooting things with a gun. So I know I've seen this, but a lot of this was very, very fresh and new for me. Like, it's just like I have a mental block telling me Trancers scenes.
Okay. Borp, what was your experience with Trancers before we made you watch this show?
I had seen the poster. I knew it was the original was way back in the Empire days.
Yes. Yes,
which
good
made
point. Yeah, good point, because this is Empire. This is pre-Full Moon. All the sequels are Full Moon, but of course we have to talk about the original before we can roll into.
For the purposes
so
of
this
Full
is
Moon
Empire
Friday
right now.
Yeah, for the purposes of Full Moon Friday, if Charles Band was involved, it's a Full Moon movie.
Right.
Totally. And that made me excited because I've seen a bunch of Empire films, and I usually enjoy those, but I had not gotten around to Trancers. So.
Well, when Charles Band has money, he can put out some decent stuff. When he has no money, we have learned he can't put out anything decent. So, this was kind of exciting to go back to, I think 1985 is when this came out, or right around there, and seeing like, oh, okay, this is when Charles Band was at the height of his powers, right? I mean, just distributing stuff like Reanimator and a lot of the Stuart Gordon movies and things of that nature. So this was when he was king of the world. He had his big castle, and he was hosting parties there all the time and dating starlets and all of that stuff, being that sort of rock star movie producer / director. And he did direct this one. So we actually get to see a Charles Band movie that he directed that has nothing to do with like Full Moon and puppets. And I'll be interested to discuss what we think of him as a director, having seen this. So with that, Steve, take us through Trancers.
So the star of this movie is a man named Jack Death. The movie starts out in the future, and we get some narration like 6 or 7 months ago. He killed a man named Whistler, and Whistler has this special psychic power that he can
psychic shit.
Yeah, more psychic shit. Whoop's favorite. He can just like enslave like mentally weak people, and
Jedi mind trick.
Yes, and so when they look normal, but when they kind of expose themselves, they kind of like zombify to a bit. So we're watching a zombie movie, Matt. Does that make you happy?
No, it didn't make me happy when I first was sort of watching it, but then I'm like, okay, it's not your traditional zombie. I'll get over it.
Because it's like kind of a cool visual representation of their mind being more and more corrupted, I think.
Yeah. What I really liked about this, and I have to mention it now because I'll probably forget it with my, ADHD riddled brain, is I love like the film noir, like the neo film noir aspect of this whole thing. Like you could tell that Tim Thomerson is playing this like an old, classical Hollywood private eye, like wisecracking. Even a lot of the dialogue is that way, and just kind of like when they like in the the diner and stuff like that. It just the visuals of this movie really appealed to me in the way that that film noir quality was. I loved it.
Yeah,
So I can get over the zombies for that stuff.
I actually wish, and maybe future transfer movies do this, but I would actually like to see a transfer movie that takes place fully in this futuristic noir setting. I don't know
Yeah.
if we ever get
That
that.
would cost a lot of money, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
well,
don't think
I don't know that
you're
he's
not
got
going to do
enough
that with full moon money.
yeah,
yeah.
doesn't have enough change in his couch to fund a
Mhm.
good transfers movie these days. But Jack Death, he killed Whistler. The mentally controlled, kind of not zombies that Whistler creates are the Trancers. That's what they're called. They are also referred to sometimes as squids, and I don't know what the link between a trancer and squid is. It's just a thing that is in this movie. It's like someone, hey, you, the extra over there off camera, like come up with a slur that we can call the zombies. Squids, you nailed it, that's just it's in the movie now. Um, so the Trancers, the Trancers are these like mind enslaved zombie esque people. So Jack Death, he killed Whistler 6 months ago, and now he is on a mission to hunt down the remaining Trancers because they killed his wife. The first scene, he goes to like a diner and orders coffee. Uh, there's just a random guy there eating lunch or dinner, or breakfast or whatever, and Jack Death administers like this Trancer test, and it turns out that guy wasn't the Trancer. It was like the lady running the diner, and so they fight. Uh,
You know what I think is kind of cool about this whole sort of little setup here is, well, number one, you just sort of circling back to what we were talking about. I like that this movie has its own vocabulary. Like when he kills that transfer, he's like, "I singed her," right? It's like you don't think of that kind of like I like that they use the squids. I'm cool with not even understanding why, right? It's just weird lingo in the movie that the characters use as
all cops are troopers, and
troopers.
that kind of
Mhm.
gives Jack Death away later on in the movie that he's not from there.
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course, like to test it, he actually has a bracelet he's got to put on and stuff like that to various people, and he like in it's that whole sort of thing with like Jack Death. His whole well, Borp, what is Jack Death's personality? Is sum up his personality towards other human beings.
That was a good question.
He doesn't give a shit.
Yeah,
He's just like fuck you. You know when he talks to that guy, the guy's like, "What you hassling me, man? I'm just eating here
He's
in the
like,
diner," and he's
you
like,
gotta have
"Fuck
a
you. Put
you
on the
gotta ha- yeah,
bracelet."
you gotta have a warrant to do the Trancer test on me. He's like, here's my warrant, and pulls out a gun
Yeah.
and puts it to his face.
I love Tim Thomerson's attitude in this whole thing. There's this great, we'll talk about it later on when they try to get him back to help out. And he tells him, like, fuck him or something. And he just goes, and he just
that's my
goes,
favorite line in the entire movie.
yeah, fuck him. And
Fuck
it
'em.
goes in and goes back into the ocean or whatever. It's so fun. His attitude is just so caustic and abrasive. And I love Tim Thomerson in this.
Yeah,
Carry on.
he's
Sorry.
amazing. So he kills this Trancer. Like his other police buddies show up, and they're like, Jack Death, you got to stop hunting down Trancers. Whistler's dead. Let it go. You've been issued a new police assignment, so either take your assignment or quit. And so he takes his badge off and throws it on the ground. He drives away. He quits. He
He
says,
just
"Fuck it."
fucking quits. That's so
Uh,
great. It's so great.
so
Hero. He's my hero.
so some time progresses, and we see the ruins of Los Angeles, which is now like underwater. Like you see like just the top halves of skyscrapers like sticking out of the water. It's a super cool looking scene.
Feels
I
very Fallout y, kinda. Like, we're in the future and it's, I don't know if you've watched the Fallout TV show, but it's like the ruins of Los Angeles or Escape from LA or something like that. But
Yeah.
kind of a precursor a little bit to some of that kind of
Well,
imagery.
it's the future of Florida, so I hope they're paying attention into this movie. Uh, Jack Death spends his time now just like swimming, like diving into the ruins of underwater former Los Angeles, like pulling out he pulls out like the Sunset Boulevard sign, or he pulls out like
Yeah.
some recognizable knickknacks, and then his police captain shows up again. It's like, uh, hey, you've been summoned by the council, and the cops have like this official little scroll thing, and Jack Death looks at it and he just walks away, and the police captain's like,
The
Jack,
boss.
you can't ignore a summons from the council. And that's when Jack Death turns around and says, fuck him. And then he goes back into the water.
PG-13 movie, by the way. So we got the F-bomb in there, and it's I would state, I'm going to be sort of like over the top here. That's one of the best uses of fucks in a PG-13 movie I've ever seen. Like, fuck them, and then just walks off and back in the ocean. It's great.
It's also so good because he takes such a long time coming back from the ocean. Like, walks up to him, fuck him, walks all the way back.
It's so good. I loved this movie. Just to get that out there now. So he says fuck the council, and then as Jack Death is going back into the water, the captain yells, "Whistler is alive," and that's what brings Jack Death back. And so he goes to the council, and the council used to have 3 people, and one of them just got vaporized one day, and it turns out time travel exists in this world, which is my fucking favorite. But the way that time travel works is you get injected with some sort of serum, and then your mind travels back in time and inhabits the body of one of your ancestors. And so it turns out Whistler survived. I don't know that it's ever explained how he survived, because Jack Death believes he was dead, but Whistler survived. He used the serum to send his mind back in time to 1980s Los Angeles, and
down the line is what they call it.
Yeah,
That's
down the line.
That's another thing with the vocabulary of this movie. Send me down the line. They're like, we're not time traveling back to 1985. We're going down the line.
Yeah. So Whistler sent his mind down the line, and he is trying to kill the ancestors of the council to wipe them out in the future. And so apparently one day, one of the council members just vaporized, and all of his kids vaporized. So it's like he never existed. How people can remember someone that never existed? How the events?
Don't think about it, Steve. Don't
how,
think about it.
How
just
this
enjoy it.
No. How this person?
You can't do this.
How the events that this person was involved with still happen despite this person not existing anymore? It's never explained. They never talk about it. It's just
they don't have to.
This is how it works. You have to accept that this is how it works in this movie. Never mind the fact that Whistler's already in the past. Like, whatever he is going to do has already happened.
Get off this, Steve. The veins are starting to go. Don't worry about it. Just enjoy the ride that you're being taken on.
Anyway, time travel happens. It makes no sense. You accept it or you don't watch the movie. So Jack Death is like, Jack Death is going to be sent down the line into one of his ancestors, and so he gets sent back. And he gets sent back into the body of a man named Phil Denton, who is fresh off having sex with young Helen Hunt. And so Jack Death arrives in his ancestor's body and is immediately confused about the state of Los Angeles in the 1980s.
Shouldn't he have some sort of prep work for this? When you asked me to describe his personality, I was like kind of froze for a minute because my first thought was like kind of aloof, like. He's
a man who just lives in the moment. He doesn't do prep work. He doesn't care. He's just going to show up and he's going to handle business. He'll figure it out.
It's so good in the scene because Helen Hunt is like, oh yeah, we just came off of this amazing date where like you compared us having sex is like the ethereal bonding of 2 lost souls, and Jack Death's like yeah whatever, lost souls. So he's trying to like, and conveniently everyone's ancestor looks just like him, so it's just Tim Thomerson again, and so
without a scar,
and like he's a little bit older. He's got like graying hair, like his hair was like jet black in the future, and he's trying to like he's doing his best to make his current self look like his future self, and so he finds the closest thing He finds the closest thing to a trench coat in his ancestor's closet. He's spending a lot of time getting ready. And the whole time, Helen Hunt is like, "I got to get to fucking work. Like you told me you would get me to work on time." And he's like, "Well, yeah, we'll get you to work. It's fine." And so he puts on a trench coat. He pops the collar. He looks at himself in the mirror, and his hair is all dry. And he has like slicked back hair in the future. So he grabs some random liquid. I don't even know if this is hair gel or just like random liquid, but he slicks his hair back, and Helen Hunt's like, "What are you doing?" And he turns to Helen Hunt and goes, "Dry hair is for squids." And like, don't explain anything. You just move on.
It's so good.
I love this movie so much.
It's so good.
So he takes Helen Hunt to work, and Helen Hunt is like, last night Helen Hunt was like very like enamored with Phil Denton, and now she's dealing with Jack Death, and she's like, "All right, you are clearly psycho. I don't want to deal with you anymore." But Jack Death is like, "Hey, look, I'm from the future. I'm here to protect. I'm here to protect, the ancestors of the future council. I don't know anything around here.
A little bit of Terminator vibes here. Got a little Terminator
for
vibe.
For sure.
I need you. I need a guide. Like my future is in danger. I need someone who is native to 1980s Los Angeles to show me around and help me find these people. And she's not having it. She is in like a Mrs. Santa Claus outfit. She's currently working as a photographer for like a mall
Christmas
Santa.
film.
This is a Christmas film.
I really like this because I feel like her reaction here is like the most genuine, like realistic thing of like what she's just letting him talk, and she's like, "Are you gonna get me to work on time? Like I do not like, sure, whatever, whatever you got going on, that's fine, but please get me to work."
Yeah, and when she gets to work, she's late, and he follows her into the building. She's like, "Leave me alone." He's like, "Please, the future's in danger." And she's like, "Did I give you my phone number?" And he's like, "I don't think so." She's like, "Oh, thank fucking God." And she just goes to work. But he just will not stop hassling her. And so, like when she's like behind a camera taking pictures of this idiot kid sitting on Santa's lap, and Santa Claus sees Tim Thomerson and like recognizes him because again, everybody's ancestor looks just like them, and it turns out Santa Claus is a trancer, and so Santa Claus like zombifies out a little bit and attacks Jack Death, and ultimately Jack Death kills Santa Claus in front of these kids, and
Awesome.
and then he and Helen Hunt flee, and Whistler went back into one of his ancestors' bodies, and his ancestor is a cop named like Weisling, something like that. And so he has basically like tranced the entire police force and is using them to hunt down the ancestors of the council.
Which this movie's saying that all cops are weak-minded.
Except for
because
Jack
that's
Death.
the only way. Yeah, it's the only way you can become or be a trancer. You're not mentally strong enough to resist his powers.
That is what the movie is saying. And so Weisling / Whistler, I'm just gonna call him Whistler from here on out, shows up to investigate the crime scene, and he finds like Jack Death's notes that happen to have an address for one of the council members. And so Jack Death goes to this council member and he's like, "Hey, you're in danger." But it turns out because I guess Whistler had the address, Whistler got there first, tranced the ancestor of the council member, locks Jack Death in I don't know, like a tanning bedroom.
It's like a weird tanning.
It's a weird tanning room. Like didn't just kill him. He was unconscious. Like Trancer could have just killed Jack Death, but didn't happen. So they lock him in a room. Helen Hunt, again, going back to Helen Hunt having a very realistic reaction. As soon as Jack Death leaves her alone in the car, she leaves.
Yeah.
But then she's like, "Wait a minute! It is weird how Santa Claus turned into a zombie. Maybe I should go back."
Which also, like, kind of fair enough.
So, I love Helen Hunt in this movie.
She is fantastic in this.
I think she's like adorable in the best ways. She just seems cool. Like you want to hang out with her character in this. And there's even a whole like punk rock scene later on. She doesn't really come across as punk rock to me, like dressed as punk rock.
She has a blue streak in her hair.
Yeah, but it's not like I would not think that she was a punk rocker from just this little tiny blue streak. But I really enjoy how her banter with Tim Thomerson is great. And she just comes across as like, I love you. Like, I could see why Tim Thomerson falls for Helen Hunt in this movie for sure.
100%. So Helen Hunt goes back to rescue Tim Thomerson, who's trapped in this tanning room. And I'm not really sure what happened here because the Trancer council member ancestor is dead. So Whistler got to the council member's ancestor first, tranced him, left, allowed Jack Death to be captured by the tranced council member, then came back and killed the Trancer, and then left again to get the police to then go back and kill Jack Death.
You're thinking about this too hard, Steve.
Yeah,
enjoy the ride.
I'm not thinking about this fourth dimensionally or something. Somehow, Jack Death should be dead at this point, but he's not. So Helen Hunt rescues him. Then Whistler shows up, and the Whistler is controlling the police, and Whistler is going to have the police just execute Jack Death and Helen Hunt, even though he apparently could have done that 10 minutes ago. And Jack Death has this watch, and he pushes a button on the watch, and he does something called the long second. And the way it's described is you push this button, and it stretches 1 second into 10. Basically, you get 10 seconds of super speed compared to everyone else around you. But when she said 10 seconds, what she actually meant was it lasts as long as the plot needs it to, because this goes on for a full minute.
Yeah.
But as the bullets are being shot, Tim Thomerson sees the bullets coming at them in slow motion and just grabs Helen Hunt and takes her to the car, and they drive off. They hide out in I don't know, an apartment that belongs to one of Helen Hunt's friends who happens to be out of town, and also the apartment is right above a punk rock concert area or something like that.
Yeah.
At this point, this is one of my favorite parts of the movie. In the future, Tim Thomerson's captain is this big dude, big husky dude, and he gets sent back in time to retrieve Jack Death, and his ancestor is a 12-year-old girl, and so it's this 12-year-old girl trying to talk tough like a grizzled detective to Tim Thomerson. It's hilarious, and it's awesome.
And it's the same actress as in 1.5.
Borp wouldn't
that
know
is
that.
the actual. Yeah, that's actually the same.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, so
try to keep up, Borp.
Jack Death's police captain, who's named McNulty, comes back as a 12-year-old girl and shoots Jack Death with the serum that sends his mind back up the line.
Right as he's about to bang Helen Hunt.
Right as he's about to bang Helen Hunt, and so Jack Death comes, gets back to comes back to the future, and the one remaining council member is yeah, we just watched the other council member just vaporize again. I don't think you can get the job done. So I'm going to send another cop back in time. I'm going to send another trooper back in time. And Jack Death's no, I got this handled. And so the council member's all right, he's got it handled. Send him back. Completely pointless scene in the middle of this movie.
Did we mention that at the very beginning when Whistler, they have him on the bed or whatever, and his mind, and Jack Death just walks up and fucking kills him.
Yeah.
And he's no, he ain't coming back to stand a trial or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm just going to fucking kill his body here and now. And then when I kill him back then,
yeah,
he won't be able to come back.
Whistler was hiding out somewhere in the desert, in the desert to time travel back. And the trooper somehow found his body and brought him back to the council the council time travel chamber. And they're we have his body here. We want you to send him back up the line where he will stand trial for his crimes. And Jack Death is if we're going to do this, we're going to do it my way. And he just pulls out his gun and blows up Whistler's body.
Just kills Whistler right then and there.
And
Jack Death.
And the council members are well, that happened. Let's go ahead and send Jack Death back.
Well, yeah, okay. It's just funny. I love the interactions.
No, I should have mentioned that. Yeah, that's a great. It's a great moment in Jack Death's character. He gives no fucks about proper procedure. Whistler is a threat, and he is going to kill Whistler and the Trancers. Anyways, so Jack Death goes back to the future for about 15 seconds, and then comes back in time. He comes back in time after Phil Denton has now finished having sex with Helen Hunt. And so he's fucking hell! Like he was about to get laid, and
Yeah.
it just did not happen. So
He went to the future to set up that joke. That
that's
was
fair.
why, and it worked. It was a funny
Yeah.
joke.
So now it's just time to figure out. There's only one council member ancestor left. It's time to go and rescue him, and it's an old baseball player named like Hap something. And so they
Hap
find
Ash or something.
Hap Ashby. So I don't know. There's like a fight. Like Jack Death like fights some punk rock teenagers in the concert hall below them. But it's just kind of like a moment to show that Jack Death is a badass.
But but it also gives those great one-liners for Tim Thomerson, whatever, because that young guy goes up to Helen Hunt and is like, "What are you doing with this old dude?" And Jack Death is he's just holding back, but then the guy says something. I don't remember what he says to him, or no, he hits him or something, and Jack Death is like, "Well, now you've pissed me
No, he
off."
spits on him. He spits in Jack Death's
Oh yeah,
face.
spits on his face, and then he's like, "Well, now you've pissed me off." Just all calm, and proceeds to beat the shit out of all of these punk rockers. So good. So good.
Yeah, so Helen Hunt and Jack Death steal those punk rockers' little mopeds and like these little scooters, and they go to find like Hap, and they apparently like Hap is like he lost all of his baseball player money, and now he's homeless, and so they go and find him. Uh, the police are after him, so Jack Death and Helen Hunt rescue Hap and take him back to their apartment. And Jack Death calls Whistler, is like, "Hey, I'm tired of this. I want out. I will give you Hap. I just want you to leave me alone with Helen Hunt." And Helen Hunt is listening to this, like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And apparently Jack Death and Whistler have made a deal, and Helen Hunt is like, "Don't fucking touch me. Like, you are going to, I'm not going to let you sacrifice. I'm not going to let you sacrifice Hap." And Jack Death's like, "It's a trick. Like, you played your part perfectly." And so like he just let Helen Hunt be offended loudly over the phone to trick Whistler into showing up, which I think is another great like Jack Death scene. But the finale of the movie is, the Whistler's going to show up to make the deal, and kill Hap in exchange for letting Jack Death live happily ever after with Helen Hunt. But of course, Whistler's evil, so he's not going to do that. And so Whistler finds Helen Hunt on top of the building, grabs her. He's got a gun to her head. He sees Jack Death down on the street, starts shooting at him. Turns out it's Hap in disguise. Jack Death was actually also on top of the building the whole time, and they're going to fight. And Jack Death, or I meant to go back and rewatch this scene because I wanted to find the exact dialogue, but I believe what Whistler is implying is that in the original timeline, Phil Denton, who is Jack Death's ancestor, knocked up Helen Hunt, and that child eventually led to the line, which led to Jack Death, which means Jack Death has been banging his great, 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 etc. grandma this entire time. Because Whisker says, once I throw Helen Hunt off the roof, you're going to watch yourself die. Like you're just going to disappear.
Well,
There's some.
technically, yes. I think in the subsequent ones you can make that argument, but technically Jack Death didn't actually bang Helen Hunt in this movie because the one time they did have sex, it wasn't him. He was back in the future.
Well, he's trying to bang his grandma.
Trying, yes, and he succeeds later on down the line. But I feel like in this movie, Jack Death, as we know him, didn't actually sleep with Helen Hunt.
Okay, well, this is like Futurama where Fry is his own grandpa. Anyway, so Jack Death uses Helen Hunt gets thrown off the roof. Jack Death uses another long second, which again is actually as long as it needs to be to rescue her. And then Hap, who again is like a former baseball player, starts like throwing empty like beer bottles at Whistler to knock him off the roof, and successfully like knocks him off the roof. He lands, luckily like lands in a fountain or something of water to like break his fall. And then Jack is like, "All right, well, I've caught you. It's time for us to go back to the future." But he only had like 2 vials of like serum that sends you back to the future, and there's only one left. And so
Sophie's choice here.
yeah, now Whistler's like, "Ha ha ha!" Like, you can't just kill me because Weisling, the guy that I possessed, has 6 kids. Would you really kill an innocent man? And those are your choices. Like, you either send me back to the future and you strand yourself here, or you kill an innocent man. And Jack Guess like, I guess, oh shit, I guess I gotta bang young Helen Hunt, and so he sends Whistler back to the future.
He made the correct choice.
Yeah, he sends Whistler back to the future, and apparently that means Whistler is dead because Whistler no longer has a body in the future, and now Jack Death is just going to like mentally dominate the mind of his ancestor, whose spirit and soul will be left in this nebulous void that the movie never describes. And Jack Death is going to live happily ever after with his great 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 grandma, and that's how the movie ends.
Yeah, see, the thing I don't understand about it is it's not really a choice, because McNulty could just come back with
That's
the
what I
stuff
was wondering.
Right.
Like, yeah,
and get it.
why?
So it's a false choice.
Yeah, it's like Jack Death could have sent Whistler back to the future, and then like look to the side for what would have been a better. I like this movie. What would have been a better ending is Whistler gets sent back to the future, and then another little box, because there's a couple of times in the movie like a little like chest gets sent back from the future, and it's got like a gun, it's got serum in it. I think what would have made like a better ending that made more sense is one of those chests gets sent back and it's got more serum in it, and Jack Death just looks at it, looks at Helen Hunt. He's like, nah, I'm staying with Helen Hunt.
Do they explain how that stuff happens? I
No.
understand the consciousness goes through, but things just appearing, I was like, did I miss the
Yeah,
explanation of
like
how a
why?
box just magically appears in the past?
No, no.
Okay, I
It's
don't need. I
it's
don't. I don't
it's
need
just
it.
it's just a thing that
Yeah.
this movie does. I love this movie. Like, it makes no fucking sense, but like Jack Death, Tim Thomerson, Helen Hunt, they're so fucking good in this. I don't care that it makes no sense.
Borp, your thoughts on Trancers?
I like this. I like that. I don't think I was as enamored with it as you guys, especially with like the lead character. I like his performance a lot. I think there's some really fun lines. I don't know, like just this. The movie is very it exists in this weird space between a bunch of different genres. I was not really prepared for how goofy this thing was going to be, and I think that kind of threw me off at certain times because I tend to maybe gravitate a little more towards movies that are unintentionally goofy, and this is very heavily leaning into comedy in a way that I didn't jive with all the time. But I mean, I think this movie looks great. I love the like chase sequence on the little scooters, and they do a lot with very little. Very much reminds me of like um, the stuff Roger Corman did, sci-fi stuff he did in the 80s.
Oh
It
yeah,
has a very
good
similar
point.
feel to stuff like Crime Waves and things like that. Um, yeah, I had fun with this. I I can't imagine these sequels being great, but we'll find out, I guess.
I love this. I thought. To me, I had seen this before, but again, I don't really have. Maybe when I saw it when I was younger, I just got no attachment to it, and so like the memories of it just didn't really linger. So to me, this is pretty much a fresh watch, and I was laughing through it. Again, Helen Hunt and Tim Thomerson are fantastic. I'm not a big comedy guy, but the comedy landed for me for the most part in this movie. I thought it was super super fun. Um, I love the film noir elements to it and the visual aesthetic to it. I think if I had to complain about, and I'm someone that doesn't really care about time travel stuff. Well, I know time travel doesn't make sense, so none of that ever really bothers me. I do feel like there is a good element to what I'm about to say and a bad element. So this is a very brisk, quick, like 75 minutes long or something. It's not like a 90-minute or 2 hour movie. So on one hand, I'm like, that's good because this movie really moves. It just goes from scene to scene to scene, and it's got this really good sort of kinetic energy, forward moving energy to it. But then the end just kind of feels so abrupt to me. It just felt like the whole resolution with Whistler and all of that, like there should have been there was a missing sequence of buildup or something to me. So I'm like, man, I really would have loved 10, 15 more minutes or something to really flesh out this whole ending and the finale
The
leading up to it. Whistler's
Trancers
does.
don't play a role in the ending of this movie whatsoever, despite
That's
being
true.
the
Yeah.
namesake.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
What is the deal with the actual like final beat of this movie? Like, am I
With
remembering this?
McNulty?
Yeah, like it's like Helen Hunt and Tim Thomerson are like kissing, and then like McNulty's like 12-year-old ancestor like walks out from behind a dumpster and kind of leers at them, and like the movie kind of
Yeah.
pauses on their face, and that's how it ends.
Well, it's weird. It's weird, and it gets even weirder when you see 1.5 and that same little girl who's now 16 shows up, and some of the dialogue and banter between Jack Death and like he walks in the door, whatever. He's like, "Hey, McNulty, well, you sure filled out." It's a funny line, but it's also one of those ooh sort of lines, right? But it's a weird beat to end the movie on. I 100% agree. Why don't you just end it with Jack Death and kissing Helen Hunt? Why does it go to this little girl like creepily smiling?
That also brings attention to the fact that the choice with the serum is a false choice, because obviously there's still people from the future that knows he's there.
Yeah, they're just allowing Jack Death to live. But we should have talked more about McNulty's like little girl character, because it's like it's hilarious, like seeing this like 12-year-old girl like be kind of like lecherous towards Helen Hunt, because like she walks in, she looks at Helen Hunt, she's like, "Who's the skirt?" Nice.
Yeah, nice. It is, and it's funny. Like the whole idea and the concept is humorous. It works really well for a plot device of a film. It's like, oh, you're coming back. It kind of reminds me. It's not a time travel thing, but it kind of reminds me if you've ever seen Interview with the Vampire and Kirsten Dunst's character, where she's like this 300-year-old vampire or whatever, but she's trapped in like a 12-year-old girl's body. So she's an adult trapped in that little girl's body. But it's weird. It's a little unsettling, but it works for what they're trying to do. And I don't think they go over the top with it to make it really gross and creepy. It's just kind of more like, oh, that's played for laughs sort of thing. But yeah, and I think McNulty's character is pretty fun. I like him. I agree with you. I'd love to see more Trancers, and I hope the later Trancers, because I know in Trancers 2, that still takes place, because Trancers 2 or 1.5, 2, and 3 all have Helen Hunt in them. So I think they all take place in the 80s. But I don't know what the subsequent Trancers 4, 5, and 6. I don't know when those take place. Maybe we will get that futuristic version. But again, just getting back to like the Terminator vibes of it. One of the things I love about James Cameron's Terminator, the thing that always captured my imagination as a kid, is the opening, right? In the future, with everything's like the blue skies and the purple lasers shooting around. It's like, okay, cool. Terminator's awesome. They go back into the past, and they're trying to prevent someone from disappearing, and affecting the future and stuff like that. So it's Terminator vibes, but again, it gives you just enough of the future where I'm like, I want to see something that takes place in that time period, and so sort of fires my imagination. So yeah, I want to see more of the water world type future of LA, where everything's underwater and he's scuba diving down and pulling out and taking the barnacles off the Sunset Boulevard sign and stuff like that. And I don't know, I'm actually kind of surprised that when I saw this as a kid, it didn't affect me more, because I loved watching even film noir type stuff back there as a kid. I remember watching Blade Runner, and it's got kind of a quasi low budget Blade Runner vibe to it, little bit like clearance rack, maybe even free rack Blade Runner vibe to it. But that kind of stuff always interests me, and I don't know why Trancers never sat in my brain as a kid. I feel like this should have been one of those films that really triggered my imagination, and I remember Puppet Master movies more than I do Trancers, and I'm kind of shocked by that, honestly. So good. But Borb, did you have something you wanted to add? You kind of look like you want to jump in there.
No, not really. I mean, this came out apparently the same year as Terminator, so maybe
really?
Terminator was on. Yeah, maybe Terminator was on your brain.
Okay, maybe. Now, Borp, you've seen Trancers. Are you excited to go through 5.5 more films?
I'm I'm excited to see 2 and 3. Those look interesting, mostly because Helen Hunt is still in them.
She's in 1.5 also.
Well, that would have been great if I saw that.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? Yeah, I had a good time.
Cool. Steve, any final thoughts on Trancers?
All in on Trancers. I'm excited to watch the rest of the series. I'm guessing by movie 4 that excitement will probably be gone. But right now, I'm fully on board with it. Had a real good time with this one.
Yeah, at a certain point, Helen Hunt becomes very, very famous in the 90s for Mad About You, and Charles Band can no longer afford her in the movies, and that'll be a sad day. And I don't remember what happens to her character at all. So does she get killed off in 3? Is she still there and she just never comes back? Do we get a recast actress in 4? I don't know. I'm looking forward to checking it out. So, but next week, folks, we are going to be talking about Trancers 1.5. So there was a quasi sequel, a short film sequel to the first movie that was just released in 2013. It was shot in the 80s. It was presumed lost forever as part of the Pulse Pounders anthology. When Empire collapsed, Charles Band found like a VHS work print of it and then dolled it all back up as best he could. You know, he's always looking for that money. Oh, I found a Trancers thing. Let's try to milk as much out of this as I could, and released it in 2013. So we will talk about Trancers 1.5, continuing the story of Jack Death and Helen Hunt in 2 weeks.
Or if you got 2 weeks to watch it, I expect you to watch it in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
God damn it.
See you later, everybody.